Okay, hello everybody. We're going to take you through a story that isn't at the end of the story at the moment. We are giving you kind of chapter 1 here. Myself and Eunice will both present as we go through, and Eunice is going to start with the background around Kerry Foods and where we are on that journey.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello everybody, lovely to be here today. I'm sorry I messed up the agenda this morning. There is a bit of a story there, but that probably story is not right for now. So we're going to do a bit of storytelling actually, because that's what a brand is. And I think everyone has a story. For those of you who work in talent or HR or who are providers to organisations, everybody has a story, whether your candidates, those you work with, or the brands you work with. So today is all about storytelling. So my story very quickly. I was brought up in Italy in a massive Italian Catholic family. My mother was one of 21 children. So I had a huge family. But what it gave me was real fantastic skills to cope with people, very big people, massive people. And it gave me a real toolkit around storytelling. And I was very deliberate in my choice of career in HR, and I've been in talent about 20 years, acquisition and management, because the curiosity I have around people's stories and brand stories, feeds the thirst that I have to do what I do today. So I've been very lucky that I've been able to tell stories for companies like BP and Vodafone, RBS, and a whole host of brand stories. And it's around telling their stories to other people. So I work for the biggest, best company you've probably never heard of. So let's do a bit of an audience poll. Put your hand up and keep it up if you have ever eaten Maltesers. Oh, wow, look at that. Crunchies, keep them up. Twixes. Drunk Lucozade, cold kind of frappuccinos or coffee, or kind of the products, the caffeine products you get from Cafe Nero, and keep them up. Coca-Cola, Pringles, Doritos. Ever given a baby some dried formula? Ever had a headache tablet that went down really well? Okay, you can put your hand down. We make 14,000 flavors and ingredients globally across 140 companies, working for 9,000 clients like Reckitt, Coca-Cola, Danone, PepsiCo. Extraordinary. So you'd never really think of Kerry as a flavors and ingredients merchant, but we're everywhere. And the bit that I work for is foods. So we make food, so hopefully you've had some scoffies with your coffees today. And we make a ton of foods, and we own a ton of brands. Some of these are here today. So Go-Go's, Cheese Strings, Wools, Mattison's, all sorts. We make 90% of the butter in the UK for private label. So if you've ever picked up a tub of margarine from M&S, that's ours. If you've ever had a hamburger with cheese slices in, that's ours. We're absolutely everywhere, but people know our products, but not our brand. And that's the massive challenge that we had. Okay, so we're everywhere, we're globally, but the foods business that I work for is across GB and Ireland, and we're in Europe as well. So pretty small geography, for us to grapple with, but we're very complex because we're in food and therefore in manufacturing, which for those of you in the room who are in FMCG, is an absolute nightmare. Okay, so we really focused on the last 12 months in our storytelling, being very clear as a business around our purpose and our vision and our values. And our purpose is to delight the consumers of tomorrow and to really nourish families by giving them healthy or sometimes slightly unhealthy snackable food. And our purpose and our vision is really around doubling our profits ahead of sales. We currently make about 6.5 billion euros a year, which is quite a lot of money. And the foods business makes, the bit I'm in, 1.6 billion. So we've been asked to put €1 billion on the bottom line in 3 years, which is a really tough thing to do. But we're very clear on how we're going to do it. And for me, that's exciting because it involves hiring a ton of people and accelerating our brilliant talent to go even further and faster. So we really had to be very clear on our values and our purpose. So we spent the whole year doing a ton of work across all our manufacturing sites, all our head office, so everyone can really articulate, they can live it, they can breathe it. This stuff is everywhere. And we came to a really good place end of the year where we thought, yep, we're doing a good job. What can we do next? So this is just an example of some of our values that we've been kind of rolling out. My favorite value is on it. Have you ever worked for a company with a value of on it? Amazing, isn't it? So we're quite forward-looking with our values. And then, ta-da! Then I started talking quite a while ago to our board about our employer brand. Now, the first year at Kerry, I've been there about 18 months, I got all the hygiene factors in place. Like many talent acquisition specialists, you get your ATS sorted, you get your team sorted, you get your agency partners, your sourcing, etc., etc. So for me, it was about being brilliant at basics in the first year, and then you have the permission to then go further. So we've done our values, got our hygiene factors. So this year is around really dialing it up and being bold around the design work. But I mentioned to the CEO, our CFO, and our head of HR right at the beginning that we would be tackling brand, but we had to wait because the hygiene factors weren't in place. Now, the three people you really need to get on board is your boss, so they can back you, the CFO, because they're going to give you the money, and then the CEO, because you're changing the kind of ethos and DNA of the company, and you're going to talk a lot about it externally, and they've got to be really comfortable with that. Now, we've got a massively introverted Irish CEO. He doesn't have any digital presence. He's not on LinkedIn. He looked at me when I asked him if he had a handle for Twitter. So can you imagine trying to tackle that conversation? But it's taken me a year, and he's kind of there now, which is amazing. And then the other key thing is having a fantastic marketing partner to work with. Now, Sarah and I met quite a few years ago, actually, at Vodafone, so it was very easy for me to identify who we actually wanted to partner with around our employer brand.
So what I'm going to take you through now is the different steps that we have gone through on this journey. I'm only going to give you a really high level at this point because we'll show you in practice how this all worked. But the 6 stages are really important for us because as employer branding experts, we have to be sure that when we go through an exercise with a client like Kerry Foods, that we're robust in how we do it. We know that board, understanding that Eunice has set up, we've got to engage with them the whole way through this process, and we've got to ensure that everything we do is on brief and hits exactly that business and what that business is all about. So the steps that we've gone through, firstly talk, which is sitting down, getting the key stakeholders in a room together and actually working out how we want to move the project forward. For ourselves with Kerry Foods, we actually had probably 4 or 5 of these sessions. There was lots of talking to do, working out things like how much would all this cost? What kind of timings needed to be achieved to move things forward? Where Kerry Foods were now on that employer journey with regard to the values, the vision, the mission. I think what's been really important through that journey as well is the kind of things that Eunice has dropped in as we've gone through. I often get asked for a bronze, a silver and a gold kind of price range. Eunice kind of started out with how about a Ford, a BMW and a Ferrari? That was much more your kind of thinking, I think. The other things that Eunice said right at the beginning is we're a food business. Our employer brand has to be about food, but it also has to be about our people. We're full of characters, individuals, such great personality in the organisation, and we want to bring that to life as we go through. The next stage for us was we needed to understand the business nearly as well as Eunice did. So we needed to get around the business. So things like understanding what people think who work at Kerry Foods from the top throughout all of the business to the factories as well was really important. The next stage for us then is to develop all of that research and take it into what that EVP is. What is that unique proposition for Kerry Foods and how will that differentiate them to candidates and also to the people who are already in the organisation, because an employer brand has touch points all the way through that people comms journey. The 4th stage, which is where we are right at the moment as well, is the express stage. What's it going to look like? How are we going to excite people? How are we going to work together as a team to get everyone in the business involved? The second 2 stages, which we'll be going through July and August, is the share. So things like careers websites, toolkits, a lot of the things that in the earlier presentation you saw come into life. But an employer brand never ends. It's always there in an organisation. Some of you have already talked today about the fact that you don't have an employer brand yet, My view is you do have an employer brand. It's already in your organisation. Our jobs and working with Kerry Foods is just to uncover it and help you articulate it better, help you show people what it's all about. So there are steps. We made them quite simple, relatively uncomplicated as a business. So I've touched on the talk stage. What we wanted to do at this talk stage was make sure that we were 100% clear on what Eunice was looking for. She's stood here for 10-15 minutes. You already know she knows what she wants, and it's really important that we got across right from the beginning that coordination between us and the wider team. So at SMRS we bring in all our different experts to this talk stage. If you're working on an employer brand, what I would say is you absolutely have to sit down and work it all through right at the beginning. There's no point getting started before you know what you want to achieve. So then we were fortunate enough to have an absolute open access to the leadership team from across Kerry Foods. That was really important because at that point what we were doing was not only asking them what it's like to work there, but we were engaging them in this project. We want them to be our ambassadors throughout the whole of this journey. So right from the start they were there. We also conducted focus groups throughout Ireland and the UK, and 3 factory tours. I was really impressed by one of my creative colleagues who was at the ready meals factory. They had a great day. Lunchtime they had tasting of all the different ready meals. It sounded really exciting. I put my hand up for the one in Ossett and I got to see how butter was made. I said, is this everything you make in this factory? He said, no, we make lard upstairs as well. So it was but ultimately what we saw throughout the tours, all of the focus groups, a real connection to the different values. Also, one of the things we've got a little video on for you next is Eunice said, we've got around 60 people at an event. We'd love for you to use it as an opportunity to find out what it's like to really work at Kerry Foods. So we obviously said, yes, sounds great. But I want it to be creative, I want it to be interesting, I want it to be exciting for everyone, really get them engaged. So there's a little video next which we'll show you, which is in that big stage as well. Some of the outputs from the different groups though, do you want to touch on these actually, Eunice?
So a lot of our candidates and our leadership team and our employees, when we did our research, they actually told us what we knew, which was linked to our values. But I've just pulled out some of the quotes, which I thought was quite interesting around we're the Google of the food industry. Many of you, like we showed today, you eat you eat products which some of our flavours and ingredients are in, or products themselves, but you don't know us, and that's a real challenge. We're the biggest, best business no one's ever heard of. If you really want to work 9 to 5 in FMCG, forget it. Somewhere else is better for you. We're 24/7. We make food 24/7, and whether you like it or not, you are on as an employee 24/7. That's a real turn on, or it's a real turn off. For example, there was a lot of discussion around relentlessness and restlessness. If you want to be the next CEO of the business, have a chat with our CEO and then let's put a plan in place. We're very much like that. We're kind of big, bold, fast, agile. And some of these insights were really bang on when we actually wrapped up all the work that we did around that phase.
So I'm just going to play this video now. So this was to 60 HR people across Kerry Foods.
You will all be making a film in the next hour and a half using vegetables. Here's why. I think from our perspective, we've worked with lots of different businesses. Every business has different values, but it's what these values really mean that sets you apart. So the stories that you come up with today will help us understand how you can really bring those values to life.
How did you find the filming exercise today?
Absolutely bonkers, but so insightful. I think it's such a great way to get people engaged, and I think it gets people's ideas going, and it's like, what are we doing with veg? But then it starts to make sense, and it's really, really funny. It's really, really good.
I suppose when you produced a bag of vegetables and told us we're going to make it a film within the space of an hour, it was kind of hard to see how we were going to bring our value to life, which was on it. But between us, we had a lot of crazy ideas and we were very happy with the outcome. I think we were probably the best one.
We do a lot of crazy things in Kerry Foods, but that's what I love about this place. Immediately the exercise was rolled out and there was action, everyone got straight into it, and every team lived the values in doing the exercise.
The best part was definitely the production piece. So once we got away from the table and actually brought the veg to life, that was the most fun, definitely.
I think it made you really drill down to the values and apply real meaning to them, and then link it to what we're trying to do as a business. So I think there was lots of rich discussions around that. So it really made people kind of get to the grittiness of them, which I think was fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hey!
So what we were able to get from that exercise was around 6 different videos that really explained how people brought the values to life throughout Kerry Foods. We're running we've run a competition, the winner's been declared, and part of the process will be to make their video and share that as we take the employer brand live as well.
Now, you can't do an employer brand without really honing down on your brand values and attributes. So it's a bit like knowing your purpose, your vision, and your internal values. You have to have external values, which everything then hinges on, whether it's your messaging or whether it's your content or whether, where you want to go around the attraction of talent. So this is where we landed in our brand values. So embrace the whirlwind. Hopefully you felt the passion and the energy through the video. I'm a very typical kind of Kerry employee. So we live in a whirlwind work, so that 24/7, that's one of our brand values. Stay hungry, we're massively innovative. When Coca-Cola came to our ingredients business and said, can you make blue Coke for the Rio Olympics? We're like, yeah, sure can. When do you need it by? It's around that innovation and that kind of relentless ambition. Take the Leap is really around being bold and brave, and we do some really crazy things at work, either with our products or with our people on learning initiatives. Grow Your Way is around how you want to grow in your career or in a different career and what pace you want to go out. And that's one of my other jobs at work, is around accelerating those who want very clear trajectory in their career or maybe a slightly different lateral career move. Share the Spirit is for us about really working together to live our purpose overall. And then Own It and Love It is just really pulling together as a company and small teams as well.
So each of those attributes can be dialed up or dialed down based on different audiences that later on we'll be targeting. But what we wanted to do as well was ensure that we'd got sufficient marketing materials to bring each of those attributes to life. So right now we're in the process of creating some food scenes. So each attribute has its own food scene. So we've got everything from lemon rockets, beautifully decorated with the cauliflower. We've also got, this is a rice mountain with sprigs of thyme for the trees, bringing in ready meals, also bringing in the growth in the business. So we've got pretty much all the assets that we're going to need. Now, it's not as straightforward as just creating these as we have done. These are just scamps. What we're now going to do is we've got a food stylist who's going to help us bring those to life and make them real, a specialist food photographer who's going to make those come to life as well. But importantly, what you see on here right now is lots of the food angle that Eunice talked about right at the beginning, but not yet the people. Now, when we uncovered the employer brand for Kerry Foods, the one thing that stood out was that it's a real company of character, and that's going to be our overarching proposition for this particular employer brand. Now, the characters within the business have to be engaged, therefore, in the employer brand. So the next thing that we're doing is we're modelling around 20 to 30 different people from throughout the business. They'll come from a number of areas. They'll be the leadership team because they've already put their hands up and said we want to get involved in this, we want to be part of it. Each of these characters will then sit within the different scenes. So we'll have people skiing down the Rice Mountain on little biscuits, we'll have, you know, sausage toboggans, everything that is in effect the products that Kerry Foods have. What we'll also do is Kerry Foods run a scheme called Trailblazers, where anyone within the organisation can come up with fantastic ideas and really show how they're taking Kerry Foods forward. The winners of that will also take part in this process as well. I didn't know a lot about 3D modelling, but I've now found out you can hire a booth, it can come to your location, you can create 3D models of different people within a day or two. So none of this is insurmountable, and I think, you know, what it gives us is a real connection between the Kerry Foods foods, but then also the different people within Kerry Foods and how they can get involved. So over a couple of days we'll be bringing everybody in, we'll be getting them 3D modelled, their models will go into the scenes, the whole thing will be photographed, and then we'll start moving forward and sharing it through all of the different internal and external people communications channels. Here's some examples of what things might look like as well, and ultimately where we are right now is planning all of that shoot. I did say at the beginning this is kind of phase one of 2 chapters, so we've been invited back as well to present at the IHR Live in September. So when we come back then, holidays are all under control to allow us to get all this content together. So we'll be ready to launch the careers site, all of the different collateral, and you'll see what everything looks like when it comes together.
Thank you, Sarah. So in summary then, there's a couple of things that that you really need to do. You need to identify your partner long before you actually want to do the work. So it's a bit like renovation or doing an extension. Get your planning and your builder at the same time. Your planning comes first, your builder will probably come about 18 months later. So that's key. You've got to know what you want and your destination of travel. You've really got to be absolute in that, because you can't change the track when you're starting to build it. Chat to the really key people. For me, head of HR, CFO, CEO, nailed them early. And then just keep talking to them, which they really loved. Let them know what to expect, like, you will have to get into a booth, Mr. CEO. We are going to body scan you, and you're going to have to lean forward and be really brave and let us make a little model. That, by the way, we could then do for Christmas to every employee. Isn't that amazing? So get people really comfortable. Again, leverage your values. You know, really dial up your purpose and your destination, and share it. You know, take away all the boundaries internally. Allow people to really feel it. Empower them to share the imagery and what they're feeling, etc., externally or internally. Allow people to let it grow organically as well. And you've got to have a partnership, and you've got to be happy with your partner. And I can't highly recommend SMRS in this space. They're real kind of experts, and you have got to have fun and enjoy the journey. So hopefully when we come back and show you what we've done collectively, it will be a Ferrari, probably painted bright red, but it will have a child car seat in the back, because that's kind of who we are as a business. Fast and furious, but careful about who we carry along our way. Thank you so much for your time. Any questions, love to hear them.